Hey there, and welcome to Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, the Good Life Group's very first Loop day. So, we're looking forward to giving you all sorts of wonderful content from the basics of setting up your account all the way to those fun tips and tricks that you might get using mobile or in the loops or organizational or autofills or all the other wonderful things that Loop has to offer. So, you will be getting today some pre-recorded items from me and Justine, as well as some live Loop panel experts. So I hope you're looking forward to a wonderful day of DotLoop training. Feel free to pop in and out as you can, and we'll have everything recorded. Thank you. And if you need any follow-up or any other direction, we are always here to help. One of the most important things when preparing for DotLoop success is setting up your account details. Now, I know it's really easy to pop in, get into your loop, and just kind of get down to business, but this will save you some time in the long run and maybe some frustrations when it comes to autofilling based on what your details and setup is for your account. So what I'm going to show you right now is how to access your account and what are the important things to change when it comes to your account details. So be very quick about it because it's pretty self-explanatory. And that's one of the things that I love about DotLoop is that it is very easy to use and pretty much user-friendly, right? They don't have a lot of extra fluff in there that we don't necessarily need. So to start with, you're going to go up to the top and you are going to click on your name or picture. Now, you might have multiple profiles, and this is going to depend on if you've had DotLoop in the past, or me, for example, I have an admin profile, and sometimes you will have a default profile and then your personal profile, depending on how you would set your account up in the first place. So I click on mine and then go to my account. Pretty straightforward here. So you fill out all of your information. You want to make sure it's all correct. So scan down here a little bit more, and you might notice that I have bhgreintegrity.com. And fun fact, that's just because I get a ton of emails to my other ones. So I use this one as my admin because I can filter it through Gmail. So again, efficiencies in setting up and how you work your processes. It's important. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, so make sure you scan down, make sure everything is correct. So for example, you want to make sure that it does say Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, the Good Life Group. Now, if you're finding that some of the autofills, it is too much information, you can, or too long, you can take that down and just do Better Homes and Gardens RE, the Good Life Group, but we do need to have as much of our actual DBA name as possible in there. You can add a tagline. I don't know where an autofill tagline is, but hey, you know what? You never know. Throw it in there. And then you have your NRDS ID. Now, if you don't know what that is your ID associated with the National Association of Realtors. As far as I know, there's not really too much of a functionality in needing that input. However, if you would like to have that, if you're like me, I like to have as many pieces of information filled in as possible in case I need it down the road, then you can just Google, how do I find my NRDS ID number? And that will take you straight to the National Association of Realtors website in finding that. Now, you'll probably need your real estate license number. And if you have any questions on finding that through the Nebraska Real Estate Commission's website or Iowa's Real Estate Commission website, just let me know and we can walk you through it. So keep scanning down here. Now, there are a few things that link with this. Right now, I have my Zillow account linked up, and that's because you can ask for reviews. I also have my Zap profile linked up. It doesn't show here, but that's mostly for purposes of training. So you can link up your Zap if you'd like. And then just make sure your address is correct. Now, my address, this one's showing as my home address. So we want to update this to whatever address you're officing out of. Now, this can help when it comes to your autofills. So if you're finding that one of the offices is not populating correctly, make sure that you change that. Now, there's another spot that I'll make sure that you have the correct office address and information as well. So now scan down a little bit more and we'll go to profiles. This just tells me what I have as the two different ones. And this also gives all of my details. So again, you want to make sure if you have your office ID number, which we get questions about that a lot. So this office ID number is for Dundee. Each of the offices has their own number. And so a lot of times we get that question, but you can autofill it right here. Scan down a little bit more. This is Tom's broker ID, and here's my license number. And then here's my oh wait, that's Tom's broker's license number. Scan down a little bit more and you can actually add associations. And so we do have the OEBR synced up, and those we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to the other section about loop templates. And then we do have our Better Homes and Gardens real estate. Now that one will hook up directly to yours. It is defaulting to that 4908 Underwood, so I will check on that. And then this one, so I am kind of a geek. I nerd out. I do read those emails that softwares and things send as updates. So recently, DotLoop has added the addition of worksheets, templates, and guides. They've already pre-built. Now that's autofills, there's net sheets, there's different sorts of guides. I like them. I think that they're okay. However, they're not branded to us, but I like to play around with them and kind of see what they've done and used DotLoop's features and technology and how they've created theirs so that we can create ours. If you're interested in kind of playing around with some things, just let me know. We're happy to kind of guide you either to adding some of those things or also finding some of those search pages and helpful trainings within the DotLoop Help Center. So scan down a little bit more here. So we do have company information. You do not need owner name and owner email. Tom is the broker, so obviously anything that we need in regards to that, we already have autofilled with either our brokerage information or Tom's information. And we do have the address here, which is the updated version of it, the 4949 Underwood. And then if you keep scanning down, now these are your notification settings. Now this is going to be completely up to you and how you have your notifications set up. Some people would like to not get notifications and other people would like to have as many notifications as possible. Now that depends on how you use DotLoop. Me personally, I like to have those notifications because specifically when it comes to task lists and items that are maybe assigned to you in messaging, which we will get to in the advanced class of DotLoop. But there are a lot of really good things that you would want to maybe keep assigned here. Now, you don't need the compliance status of a loop when that's updated. If you'd like to keep that, you're more than welcome to. That just means that when one of the admins changes your loop status from, say, needs review to reviewed, then that would change and whatnot. And same with I would also take off when my office adds tags, because the thing is that you don't have the ability as an agent to add specific tasks, which I really wish they would add. But we use that in our organizational systems on processing for the transaction paperwork that you need in the audits that we have. So we do add tags quite frequently to your loop that you cannot change or update, but you don't necessarily need to have that. So if you wanted to uncheck that so that you don't get it, then that's great. Now this one, I would highly recommend having your daily task reminders on. Now this is going to be important as we get a little bit down to some of the efficiencies, and especially when we start talking about the all-star panel and the teams and assistants panels, because those daily task reminders come in handy when you're in the middle of transaction or multiple transactions and you're trying to managing through all of those. I uncheck mine because I tend to get a lot, and either I'm ignoring them because it's my own transaction, or I'm actually getting multiple things assigned to me because of that admin component that kind of leaks over into my personal profile on DotLoop. So I've talked way too much about that. Now we'll pop back up here because we're going to hit all of the other tabs. Now, I do like the document preferences. So what we're doing with DotLoop this year is it is kind of the year of the form. So we are going through, and it is a long, tedious process. So it has been in the works since the beginning of the year, but you can change how you would like to have your default fonts come in when you're adding text. So for example, if you're adding to an addendum, what you want that to look like normally. You can even make it blue. Look at that. So anyways, you can change all of these different pieces and kind of play around with what you prefer. And so you'll also see us, we'll be making some changes kind of here and there. Nobody panic. It's just increased efficiencies and consistency across forms. Okay, now we're going to jump to messenger notifications. So I keep all of these on. You want to have all of your notifications come to you. And there's a couple of pieces with this. We do send you messages when there are things that are needed within your loops. And then also, when it comes to that messenger piece of it, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, when you start to use that more efficiently and you encourage your clients to start using DotLoop and that messenger function, you're going to want to have that into your phone or your email so that you are notified anytime there's communication in regards to your loop. We don't need to worry about upgrade. We are in the upgraded package. You will know if you're under our umbrella, if you see that green, our Better Homes and Gardens green at the top. If it's blue, then you're in a profile that's not hooked up to our account. And that could be, like I said, that default versus your primary versus any old ones that might have been set up. And then there are apps that sync up. There's not too many right now, but I anticipate that there will be more. So there is that Zillow feature where you can ask for reviews through Zillow. And then this one's kind of cool to notarize, like an online notarize piece of it. I have not played around with it. I don't know much of the details. And then a couple of others, Zap as well. So that's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to setting your account. The important pieces of those is that knowing how your account details are set up for yourself means that your account or your form autofills will be a lot more efficient as you're running through your transactions. Now we're going to talk about prepping your clients for their signings and actually using DotLoop. So what I see a lot of agents do is only give their clients access to DotLoop or even talk about DotLoop very much is when they need signatures. Now that's great because DotLoop at its kind of basic function is really a signature, online signature platform. But if you're using it to its greater functionality, you should be using that as a tool and as something that is a value and a separator of you versus any other agent. Because what DotLoop does for the client is it is an entire transaction and forms documents management system. So they should be familiar with it ahead of time because they will be able to use this and go back to it, say in the next year when their air conditioner breaks, they need to know what the actual terms of the agreement was when they asked for it in the inspection and what the actual repairs were done from the vendor. So you can use it as kind of that document management. And then if you start adding things into that where you have all of your title documents in there, any of the tax forms and documents, anything that they do to the house, they could upload a document in there so that they have an ongoing record of the updates or repairs that have been needed throughout the lifetime of their home, because it is free for them. Unless they start going crazy with adding different loops, it is absolutely free for them to utilize the features of DotLoop and electronic signatures. I mean, you could even tell them like, hey, this is free. So you know that permission slip that you have to sign for your kid's school, just throw it into DotLoop. Now, this is where the conversation comes ahead of time. When you are sitting at the listing table, when you are touring homes and talking about your offers and what that process looks like, DotLoop should be a really big part of that conversation because you will be utilizing DotLoop a lot. And it is important that they know how to, one, they should be setting up their account ahead of time. Have them go to DotLoop and set up an account before you have any need for signatures. This is going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to get them familiar with DotLoop before the heat of a transaction, right? So when you're just needing to sign things and you're trying to either sell your house or buy one, you're not really paying attention to necessarily the functionalities of the software. You're just trying to get your contract signed and moved on to the next step. So the conversation that you need to be having with your clients is about what DotLoop is and why it's important and why you use it differently than anyone else in town. We do have a lot of brokerages that use DotLoop. So how are you utilizing DotLoop different? Everyone has, I would say 99.9% of agents have an electronic signing outlet. How are you using that to your advantage to be a differentiator to you from the other guy? And this is how you're going to do it because you need to sell DotLoop before it's just a signature signing piece like DocuSign is. Now you get them in there, have them set up their account. This way They also don't have to be worried about kind of that end stage where they go, do I set up an account? Do I not? This seems like, and then they don't ever. So every single time they're kind of popping back in there, have them set up their account first and have them play around in it. Now, what you can do then is there are some forms on DotLoop that you can download that are specifically for clients practicing to sign. So if you have somebody that you know would enjoy that, you can download it and drop it straight into a loop and be like, all right, here's what it's going to look like. Here's what you can anticipate seeing. And I think it's kind of cool, but it just adds to that layer. Now, the other thing that you can sell it to them as is a document storage. So as you're going through your transaction, everything's going to be within DotLoop. Now, think about it from your client's perspective. We use DotLoop all of the time, and we know that DotLoop and our loop is basically, command central for any paperwork that's going to be associated with the transaction. If you're on the receiving side as a client and you are not familiar with or have set up an account or know that DotLoop does other things, it can get kind of confusing for them. So put yourself in their shoes. When they get an email from you, all they have to do is click a button and it takes them to just the forms that they need to sign. If you communicate to them that they will always have access to that and the information and forms that they've signed already, all they have to do is log into DotLoop and they can see the forms that they've already signed. So that gives an element of control and organization to how you manage through your transaction. I'm telling you, most people just send that email, have their clients sign, and then their clients just trust that it's going to the right places. So I really highly encourage getting clients in there and letting them play around. Now, I didn't do too much instructional on this because this is more of Leslie's soapbox. However, I do think that it's important. So as soon as you're setting your clients up, go ahead and encourage them to, get them into the loop. And then you can also have them download the app. So what's really helpful about that is how often are we in front of our computers in this market right now? It's busy. They might be at kids' baseball games or out on vacation. And what do you think that we need at any given point in time when it's not a convenient time? Is a signature. If you tell them that there's an app that they can download, that they can access their documents at any time and they can sign any piece of paperwork at any time that they need, it gives another level of, like I said, it gives them more control and it gives the organizational process and pieces of it makes you look really cool. So they download the DotLoop app, they sign in, they log in, and now they can access and sign from anywhere. Now, the other thing too is that you can communicate to you can communicate to your clients through DotLoop. So if you want to stay even more organized, you can start to communicate in the messaging app and start encouraging them to use messaging as well. So here we have, obviously, all the different pieces of things that, I'm missing. I'm sure you like my note about I didn't get a final net sheet and I'm not going to get one. That's real nice, right? Anyways, so you can see all of the communication that you've sent, right? So it's great seeing and being able to have everything all in one piece. Now, what I like about this is that they can then have a one-stop shop for their communication and know that they're going to communicate through DotLoop. But the other thing is that you can introduce vendors to them. So if you've ever set up your vendors, we obviously have escrow title, but you can always add your lenders. You can add your home inspectors. You can do even that. We've got warranty. I don't know where they get these stock photos of people on there, but hey, so you can set all of these up ahead of time so that they also then have a one-stop shop where you can do the introductions. So you can have them, you can send one email or one message through DotLoop introducing your title person, your lender, and get your clients looped in there, and they all get it at once. Here are the signed final documents for the purchase of XYZ. Title, please start on. Lender, please do this. And client, here's your executed documents if you have any questions. So utilizing these things prior to the actual need for signatures is going to make you look like a rock star. And it's also going to help streamline things too. So I highly encourage that you have your clients get into DotLoop before they need actual signatures. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to geek out on my soapbox. as much as you'd like.
Let's take a look at our DotLoop dashboard. Our dashboard is also going to serve as our home page and the area that you see right when you sign into your DotLoop account. So it's just really good to know about a few of its features. So right over here, we have the search bar where we can easily look for different loops that we have, either by their address, their title, or their MLS number. So this is a helpful feature to have. Over here, we have different filters that we can narrow down our loops by. And you can actually see that I'm using a filter right now so that I can just show these two loops and we can focus on those for the trainings. So let me open this up and point out a few things. So DotLoop is going to default to hiding your archived loops because it is assuming that since they're archived, you don't want to see them on your dashboard, at least not all the time. So you can always update this to maybe only seeing your archived loops or seeing everything. So it just depends on what it is you're looking for. You can also narrow things down by the different types of loops that you have. So maybe you just want to take a look at your listing loops or maybe your purchase loops. You can utilize that feature as well. There are also different statuses that you can narrow your loops down by. And a common one would be maybe just taking a look at your loops or transactions that are under contract or that have sold. So again, depending on what it is you're searching for, but there are a number of different options that you can choose to filter your loops by. And the same goes for the different review stages that are available. Maybe you want to take a look at the loops that have been returned to you, because that means that either something was not fully signed or we need something from you. So this is a good feature to utilize, maybe to just get organized and see what it is that is still needed for your loop and your transaction. So once you have chosen one of these filters, you'll want to make sure to press save so that then your dashboard will update and only show listings that have, or excuse me, loops that have that criteria. Once you are ready to take the filter off and have your dashboard go back to normal, all you need to do is just press clear. So I am, again, going to leave my filters as I have them so that I only see these two loops. But now you know of the different options that you have when trying to maybe find just a particular type of loop. Also over here, you have the option of sorting your loops in a few different ways. So I currently have it as the last updated, but you can take a look and sort things by transaction price, list date, closing date, and so on. So a few different options there as well. We also can choose how we view our loops. So you can see that mine right now is in a list view. However, when you begin with a brand new DotLoop account, it is going to default to this grid view so that each loop is one of these blocks. Now, I am always going to recommend that, especially as you get going and you have more loops, that you transition to the list view because it is going to be a bit easier to scroll through and see information at a glance. The third option for a view is the compact view. And you can see that it is a little more tightly put together, maybe a little bit harder to see, especially as you have more loops. But again, up to your preference. I would also recommend the list view. So I'm going to put mine back to that option. A couple more features. There is the activity log. This is similar to what you would see within your loop. It is going to show you everything that's happening on your dashboard and with your loops. So what you've created, what you've made updates to, and so on. Then we have our notifications, and this is going to be an area where you see notifications for maybe an edit made to something within your loop, or maybe your client has viewed and signed a document. Something to also note is that so long as you haven't updated your notification settings, you will also receive an email with the same notification. So you'll receive it in two spots, within your email and here within your loop. let's walk through the steps of creating a new loop. After you have signed into your DotLoop account, you will find yourself on your dashboard. This is where we are right now. So in the upper right-hand corner, go ahead and find the Add Loop button and press that button so that we get to the next page where we can follow the 4 steps to add a new loop to our account. So the first step is going to be naming your loop. Now, if you have a listing, you will already have the property address. So that will be part of the name of your loop. If you are working with buyers, you may or may not already have the address. So if you do not, go ahead and just name the loop with your client's names. You can easily update the name of your loop with the property address once they have had an offer accepted and it has gone under contract. Now, for today's purposes, I am going to go ahead and type in my 123 Main Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68130 address. And then in addition to that, I am going to add Sally and Steve Seller as my sellers. It is very important that you add some kind of identifier to the name of your loop. So in this case, I am adding my clients' names, and I would say about 99% of the time, that is what you will want to add. This is going to make it that much easier to find the loop that I created on my dashboard. As many of us know, when you have a listing, other agents are going to be sharing offers with you via DotLoop. That is going to create additional loops that appear on your dashboard. So you may have a dozen or even more 123 Main Street loops because all these different offers are coming in. You will easily be able to find your loop that you created just by having the name of your clients within the name of your loop. So that is super helpful. I highly encourage following that way of naming your loop. So I'm going to go ahead, go to step 2, press continue. This is where I can select a loop template. This is especially important because it gives your loop the structure that it needs. And what I mean by that is it automatically creates the folders that you need. It loads the documents that you need in order to get started with a listing or a purchase. So it really sets you up for that success. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time that you have a new transaction. So go ahead and click the drop-down arrow to see the different loop template options. We have listing, purchase, and so on. There are specific loop templates depending on where you're working. So for today, I am going to go ahead and just select the listing template because my transaction is going to occur in Nebraska. So listing template, I will press continue, and step 3 is giving me the option to upload a photo to my loop. This is completely optional, but it is a nice feature and can be a nice added touch just to the loop process for your clients. So most often we see either a photo of the home that is being purchased or of the clients. So just to give you an idea of what the photo would look like in your loop, picture your Facebook page and the cover photo that appears on there. That is what it would look like in your loop as well. So for today, I am going to bypass this step and press done so that I can create this new loop. And once the loop has been created, we will see a box that appears with a new tag up in the upper left-hand corner right here. And I am going to go ahead and press the button that says View Loop so that I can open this up and see what a brand new loop looks like. So at the very top, you will see the 123 Main Street title that I have given my loop. And just so that you know, you can easily edit the name of your loop. And that can be done just by clicking the name and clicking it one more time, and you can see that this cursor appears. So I can go ahead and make any kind of edits that I need. Maybe I misspelled a name. I can easily change that. Just go ahead and press the enter key and it saves that for me. So I'm going to go back to my loop, click that back arrow, and let's take a look at the folders. So just by selecting that listing template,
Now I have all the folders and all the documents that I need to get my listing going. So the first folder that we see is the listing folder. We like to have people think of this folder as your working folder. So the folder that you are using to make edits, to prepare documents for signatures, to share the documents with your client for signatures. And then once the documents have been signed, that is when you can take the documents and drag them to the final documents folder. Now let's take a look at the final documents folder. Within this folder, you can see that there's grayed out document names. You can click on those as much as you want. They are not going to open because they're not actual documents. They are simply placeholders. So areas that are waiting for you to drag and drop a document into them. So the final documents folder is also a folder that you are only ever going to want to submit for review. So the listing folder is your working folder, and then the final documents folder is where you will drag and drop documents and then ultimately submit them for review to your admin. So the next folder that we have here is the commission processing folder. You really will not need to worry about this folder. It is really just for our commission processing department. The next important area within your brand new loop is the people section. So you will see that the Better Homes and Gardens real estate admin is already added as a person within your loop. And this will be the case for any other loop that you create. There are two reasons for this. One, it allows us to easily review your paperwork. So once you submit your final documents folder for review, it goes to our admin and they can easily hop into your loop, review the documents, and go from there. The second important reason that we are automatically added to the loop is so that we can help to troubleshoot any kind of issues or errors that you might be experiencing within the loop. So in addition to this, clicking the Add Person button will allow you to easily add your sellers, add any other parties who might be playing a role within your transaction. And to click Add Person, you will see that this box appears, and we will dive into this a little bit more in a future video. But so that you have a visual, this is what that piece would look like. And then last, but also very important, is the task list area. So with choosing a template, it will automatically load a file audit task list in there. This is used by your admins so that we can easily check things off as they are done and completed. And then we can easily at a glance see what we are still needing. So this is a huge piece of the admin process because we can communicate with our agent what it is we might still need. And also for the commission processing piece of it, once everything is all taken care of, the commission processing department can easily take care of your commission, process your money, make sure that you are getting paid as quickly as possible. And then third, we have our twice a year real estate commission audit that this is very important for as well, because they always ask for these pieces of information. So here we have seen what a brand new loop looks like and the folders, documents, lists that are involved in there. Please watch for future videos as we dive into these different areas a little bit more. This video will give an overview of how to add transaction details to your loop, and then how those details autofill into your DotLoop templates. So to get started, you will go into your loop, and we are going to go to the details page. In order to get there, you can either click the name of your loop, or you can click view details. So either way is going to get you to the same place. And on this details page, you can see that there are a number of different fields that you can fill in with your transactions information. So many different sections. Something to note is that you won't have, more than likely, all the information, especially for a listing, right at the beginning, because of course, more times than not, you haven't put the listing under contract just yet, so you don't have contract dates or offer dates or things of that sort. So there are areas that are going to be left blank, but the idea is that you will add information as you have it onto this details page. So together, let's go ahead and add a few pieces of information so that ultimately I can open the listing agreement and show you what that looks like to autofill using the information that we're providing to DotLoop. So let's get started by adding our property address. Now, I am using a fake 123 Main Street here in Omaha, Nebraska address. So normally you could just type in your address and Google Maps would populate that, and then it would subsequently include or add, excuse me, the information to each of these text boxes. But I am going to go ahead and just manually type in my house number, 123 Main Street is the street name here in Omaha, Nebraska. So you have this option as well. Of course, it's not ideal because it does take just a little bit of time. And normally you would be able to just go ahead and put this into the search bar. It adds it for you. I don't have the MLS number just yet. So this is an example of something, I would leave blank. But you can easily go back into this details page and add the information once you do have it. So I am going to go ahead and I'm probably going to bypass a couple of areas just for this training purpose, but something specifically with the listing agreement that I want us to see populate will be the listing date, the expiration date, and of course the price of the listing. So let's see. I'm adding my listing date and expiration date right here. And let's go ahead, add that original price, current price as well. And so more sections that I can fill out, I can add the legal description and so on, because of course we know that that is necessary on the listing agreement. But for now, I am going to press save because these are the details that I have and that I want to use for right now. And as you may notice, you can either save at the bottom or you can save up here at the top. Let's go back to the main page of my loop. Let's take a look in the listing folder. I am going to open the listing agreement and I'm opening it for the first time. Anytime you open a document for the first time, this autofill box is going to appear. So I was just on the details page. We were just taking a look at that. And that's where I entered in many of the details of my transaction. This right here is also an area that you can add those pieces of information. So maybe between then and now, I found let's see here, the legal description. I could easily add that in here. So I am just going to put example legal description, just so we can see what that looks like. After this, I'm going to press autofill, and anything that is highlighted in yellow, those are areas where DotLoop has taken the information that I've provided and has autofilled them into spots with that corresponding title. So the autofill, the details page where I put the address, this document has a spot for the address. And so DotLoop knows that that is where it needs to autofill or populate that piece of information. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of page 1 where I can see my list date, my expiration date, and of course my list price. You will see that there are different text boxes where you are going to have to manually type in information because DotLoop doesn't always know the specifics of every transaction. The different financing terms that's a perfect example. You will want to go ahead and select the different types that are going to be accepted. You will want to make sure that you are detailing your commission percentage and commission details. The listing agreement is always going to default to our $350 BAC fee, but of course, if you have a different fee, you'll want to make sure to make that adjustment as well, and then so on. You'll just want to take a look at this listing agreement and make the specific edits that you are needing to, just depending on your listing and the agreement that you have with your sellers. Another area that I would like to point out are the initial and signature areas. So because we have identified Sally and Steve as our sellers, DotLoop knows where they need to initial and sign on each document. So the listing agreement, we can go ahead and we can click each of these boxes, and right up here, it lets us know who it is assigned to. So this particular one is assigned to Sally, and this one is assigned to Steve. So when they begin to sign, DotLoop will take them to the boxes that they are supposed to initial and sign. Now, if I scroll just a little bit lower, I can see here that it's auto-filled my clients' names and then also where they are supposed to sign. So it makes it very, very easy and simple for your clients and for that signing process. So I will go ahead and I'm going to save this. And as I am going through the other documents, I'm going to go to the home page. I will go down the line. I will autofill my agency disclosure and my seller net sheet and so on. And then basically I am preparing everything so that I can ultimately share it with my clients for signatures. Let's take a look at a few areas that are good to know about when you are working in your loop. So one of the first areas I'd like to point out is the messaging area. So when you submit your loop for review, your final documents folder for review, an admin will review your paperwork, and more than likely they will send you a message when they're done, either a simple thank you or a reason for returning something or something else that they might be waiting for, some kind of communication with you. That message will end up in your inbox as well as on your side of things in your loop. So you will be notified both ways, in your loop and then also by email. And all of those messages can be seen by clicking this icon. So there aren't any messages in there right now, but just so you know where you can find those, something also good to know is that you can simply just reply to that email that comes to you, and it shows up to the admin in here and then also to the admin's email. So there's just a couple of ways that you can be notified, and that's just good to know so that you're always, for lack of better terms, in the loop. So another area to point out is the add folder button. Some people aren't aware that you can actually create your own folders. So a template is going to have folders that are already loaded in there, of course. So this is a listing loop. So we have a listing folder, a final documents folder, and a commission processing folder all ready for us. But say that you have a number of different like receipts or invoices or maybe inspection reports that you want to just have in their own folder, you are more than welcome to click add folder, name it as so, and then add documents in there. One thing to know is that you can only add PDFs. So no pictures, no Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. It has to be a PDF. The next area that I would like to point out is the add document button. So of course there are going to be certain types of transactions or scenarios that are going to require different documents. If it's as simple as a general addendum, or maybe something more specific like a lead-based paint disclosure or VA or FHA addendum. So all of those documents can be found in our library of different DotLoop interactive templates. So those are templates that we have already created for you that you can just search for and add to your folder and customize it as you need to. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to click this add document button. But before I do, I want to give a small disclaimer that I am working out of an admin account that does show a few more folders and a few more features than an agent account would. So the concept is really the same, but I am just going to click this and really just point out the folders that an agent would be seeing on their end. So let's go ahead and click add document. It does give us a few different ways to add a document, whether it's through our templates, which we'll take a look at, or browsing to upload a PDF, or forwarding an email with a PDF to the folder. For right now, let's click templates. And like I said, there are just a couple of folders that you are not going to see on your end, but there is all documents. So that's just what it sounds like. It is a catch-all. So if you need something quick and you're not sure what folder specifically it might be in, listing miscellaneous, and so on, you can just go ahead and click all documents and start typing in. Maybe it's the lead-based paint disclosure. I will go ahead and click the box next to this and press copy. And it is included in the folder that I chose add document for. So now you can see the lead-based paint disclosure is up at the top. And now I can open that up, autofill, assign signatures, and ultimately share it to my clients. So that is a great feature to know about. Another area, and I am going to scroll back up to the top, is the activity log. So the activity log is helpful for the fact that you can see everything that happens in your loop. So of course you can really just see all the actions that I've taken because this is my practice loop. So I am really the only person in here right now, but it shows you down to the moment that your clients take a look at a document, even before they've actually started signing and have finalized their signatures. So you can really see every step of the way what is happening. And it's really helpful if a client does get with you and say, wow, I'm a little confused, or I thought I finished signing, but maybe they didn't finalize their signatures. You can see all of that in here, which is really helpful. So I will go back to our loop, and another feature right next to the add folder area is the show archived. So you may already be familiar with the archiving option. So DotLoop does not delete documents permanently. It only archives them so that you can easily bring them back if you need them. So nothing's ever really lost or gone forever, which is a sense of comfort because you won't be without. So if I click show archived, it is going to make folders and documents reappear that I have archived while I've been working with this practice loop. So if I wanted to bring back this folder, because let's say now I have a number of receipts for work done at my listing, I can go ahead and click these three dots right here, which I will get into in just a couple of moments, but I'm going to click the three dots and there is this unarchive option. So I'll click this and now this folder is here and ready for me to use. There are also a couple of documents down here that if I wanted to bring back these listing agreements, I could easily click unarchive as well, but I'm going to leave them as is. So now I can click hide archived, and everything that I want to be there and to be seen is there. So I had mentioned these three dots right over here. Clicking here, you can see a number of options are coming up. Some of them are a little, straightforward. You would know how to do them without clicking the three dots, like opening a document. You can also just click the document name. This is a great area to know that you can rename a document. So the cursor appears and you can rename it as such. There's also making a copy. You can make a copy of a document by going here. You can also see the history of the document, what kind of edits have been made, if it's been viewed, if it's been altered. And so it's very similar to that activity log, but it really just focuses in on the document itself. There is also a print option and a download option, as well as a signature verification. So this is where the need for having each individual having their own email address comes into play, because we can know when Sally signs and when Steve signs, and verification of the two. There's also the archiving option, which we just talked about. You know, if this is something that you are not needing, you can easily archive it. And the required to submit option is something that you would not see on your end. It is an admin feature, but there is also a faxing option, which not a lot of people know about, but every now and then, I would say maybe like once, twice, maybe even 3 times a year, you'll run into the need to fax something. And so that is a feature that is available. It's very simple. You go ahead and you click fax, put in the number, any kind of message you would like to include, and it appears as a cover sheet. So those are a few different areas that are just great to know about when working with your loop. And some great features really just to save you some time. This video will show how to add people to your loop, so anyone who is playing a role within your transaction, and how to share documents with those people and what that looks like. So to get started, go ahead and go to your loop, open that up, and scroll to the section where it says people, which is where we are right now. In that section, you will see a green button that says Add Person. Go ahead and click that button to see the next box that appears and areas that are necessary to fill in order to add that person to your loop. So the bare minimum pieces of information that are needed would be the person's full name, email address, and the role that they are playing within the transaction. So this is a listing loop that we are working in, and I have 2 sellers. So those are the people who we are going to add. Again, I am going to add in the full name. So let's start with Sally's seller, and I will add Sally's email address, sallyseller.seller@gmail.com. And then over here, I will select her role as seller. Now, a few things I would like to point out. Up at the top, we can see this add to my team option. There's a box next to it. If I select this box, another notification appears, and it says that this cannot be undone for this loop. This function is irreversible and something that not even DotLoop can undo for you. This will really only be used for maybe an assistant who is on your team, or a transaction coordinator that is going to be helping with your transaction, or potentially maybe somebody who you are co-listing a property with. But even then, you have the option of just having your independent loops. So that is up to you. Again, make sure that you are 110% before you add somebody to your team, because by doing this, they can see everything in your loop, every kind of update, any kind of edit, and really they can work as you would work within your loop. So it is a big permission to be giving somebody. So I am going to go ahead and press cancel because I do not want to add my seller to my loop. And I am going to also take a look at these other fields that have appeared just by selecting the role of my client. So I can either opt in for including these additional pieces of info, or I can leave them blank. So completely optional, and that is up to you. Some of these pieces of information will autofill on other documents, but some won't. So it is up to you and what you are wanting to do for this particular transaction. The last piece that I would like to point out when adding a new person will be the send intro email. By clicking this button, there's a somewhat generic email that will be sent to your client, just letting them know that you have added them as a person within a loop. It gives them just a few details, but you also have the option of including a custom message. So that could be nice and helpful just to personalize things, and Sally seller will know that this is coming from her agent. So again, this is optional, but it is just a nice way to introduce DotLoop to your client. So I'll opt in just for that generic intro email and press add person. So now we can see that I have Sally seller in here as one of my sellers. I am going to head and add Steve seller in here as well. So let's go ahead and add Steve and his email address. And then I'm also going to select his role as well. So one thing that I would also like to point out, and it is concerning the email address. So you can see that I have two separate emails, one for Sally and one for Steve. This is always going to have to be the case. Anybody who is added to your loop has to have their own personalized email address. So Steve and Sally would not be able to have the same email. This is because the agent needs to have the capability to share documents with each client so that they can sign on their own. So it's just very important that each client has their own email address that they can receive these documents to, so that they can sign as themselves. So I am going to go ahead and add Steve into my loop. And now I have two clients right in here. Now I am going to go ahead and go to my listing folder. Now, normally I would make sure that all of my documents have been auto-filled. I've made any kind of specific updates to them prior to sharing them for signatures. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I am going to simply show you what it looks like to share a document. So I am going to go ahead and share the listing agreement. I'm going to click the box next to listing agreement. And as I do that, you can see that these buttons appear up top. So I am going to go ahead and press share, and this new box appears. DotLoop is really great about giving you an overview of what it is that you are about to share. So if I had multiple documents that I was going to share, because that is an option, they would all be listed right here. But because I am just focusing on the listing agreement, you can see that that's the only document listed. Then it shows the different people that I have the option of sharing with. And Sally and Steve are automatically checked because there are several fields on the listing agreement where they are needed to either initial or sign. And for each of them, there's a total of 3 areas. So DotLoop also will default to the signing permission for these people. In this case, it is just allowing Steve and Sally to sign the document. If you hover over each of these options, it gives you a description of what each of these permissions will allow the participant in your loop. So of course, view only would really just be for informational purposes. Can sign will allow for signatures and initials. Can fill in sign would be great for something like the seller property condition disclosure, where your client might need to check boxes, fill in text boxes to provide additional information, and then ultimately sign an initial in a couple of areas. And then last, there is the can edit option, which is really going to be rarely used and never used, honestly, with your clients, because what this means is by sharing with the can edit in private permission, you are sharing a document with somebody, and then they have the option of making whatever edits that they would like to that document. And you will not see those edits until they have chosen to share the document back with you, which, as you can probably imagine, would be very difficult and confusing for your client to be able to do for you, especially if they're not familiar with DotLoop. So really, you will want to keep away from the can edit in private function when working with your clients. So I am going to keep the can sign permission, and you have the option of adding a custom message in here. So more than likely your clients will be anticipating these documents coming to them so that they can sign and you can get that listing right into the MLS. But it might be nice to include a custom message, just giving an overview of what it is that they are looking for, or looking at rather. The last piece that I would like to point out is this option to attach a PDF to the email. So I am only sharing one document. By sharing this document, my clients are going to be notified via email that I have shared, and it will give them an option to start signing. Additionally, in that email, at the very bottom, there will be a PDF attached, which will be of the listing agreement. Now, the more documents that I share, the more PDFs that will be attached to the email. So I just strongly encourage that this is used, and I'm going to go ahead and share. From there, I can see that there's been a confirmation that this document has been shared, and now we're just waiting on others to go ahead and sign. So I'll press done, and within my listing folder, now I can see that there is the waiting on others status. If I go ahead and hover over this, it says who I'm still waiting on, which is both Sally and Steve. And then if I just want to double check who I have shared the document with, I can see that it was Sally and Steve. So this is just a general overview of what it looks like to add people to the loop, as well as what it looks like to share a document with them.
So I really appreciate everything that you guys do all the time to stay organized and on point. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here really quick. And what I'll do is just I want to get a feel for, I'm going to change my view here because that kind of shifted. But I'd love to hear what your guys's kind of journey has been using DotLoop or getting familiar with DotLoop, whether it's come from something else or the evolution of just using DotLoop as a online signature vessel to an organizing machine. So I'll backtrack slightly because I didn't even introduce you guys. We have Stephanie, Jen, and Rhonda, three great, amazing, talented, wonderful women that keep the ships going and also are very knowledgeable and smart in what they do to anticipate some of the things that come up that maybe most people don't recognize. So a lot of questions that we get from the brokerage end could have been prevented if an agent were to think ahead. And these ladies are thinking ahead for all the people that they support and the people that they work with. And also in everything that they do when it comes to transaction management and pieces of it, because it's kind of that 10,000 feet, right? You have to look at the business and transactions as moving parts, because at any point in time, any of that can kind of shift off the rails. And so the more systematized you can be with the processes and softwares that you have up front, the more flexible you can be when, say, termite doesn't get ordered and you're 3 days away from closing, because those are still pieces that you have to wear many, many hats and try to think of 1,000 different things. So I'll stop talking because I can blow hot air for hours and hours. So, but yeah, I'm just going to start kind of at the top where you guys fall in my Zoom. So Stephanie, you're up. You get to give us kind of a little bit of your backstory and how you've kind of come into your DotLoop stride, and maybe some of the hurdles that you kind of ran into along the way that you've found better ways or different ways to do things within either the system or how you organize transactions.
Yeah, so I'm not on a team. I used to be on a team. That's kind of where I started when we came over, and we were using DocuSign before. And so it was a transition, but I don't think it's any better or worse than DocuSign. It's just different. And I think that you guys support us in our questions really well, and all the back end stuff that you can do to make it easier on us. So I've been happy with DotLoop, and I manage from 75 to 100 files, active files every day. So with my 16 agents that I do transaction management for, I really have to focus on how to do it quickly and efficiently. So I don't do a lot of fancy stuff in my loops. Everything's pretty cut and dried, which I think really it doesn't have to be fancy. The one thing I do like to do is put everything possible in there. So any kind of important email, commitments, termites, anything that might need to be looked at by anybody else in the transaction now or years from now, I put in there so that I don't have to keep folders in my emails. I don't have to keep anything else. I just count on DotLoop to store all that for me. I guess the one thing I know that people don't realize is that, like, if you have a listing loop and you get an offer in and you have all the documents, you don't have to keep your old like affiliated. You can drag it down and put it right over that. It's going to stay there. That old one that you had with just the seller's signature is archived automatically. It's always there. It will never go away. You don't have to be afraid of that. I know agents are pretty afraid of losing documents, and so then they make a copy and put it down in the next folder, and it's just, you have all these documents that are unnecessary and more work. So
yes, there's so much. DotLoop doesn't delete anything, but I think you're right. There's a level of fear when it comes to losing something, because I think that a lot of times a lot of our agents are accustomed to pre-DotLoop. When if you lost a piece of paper, you lost that piece of paper. Like,
yeah.
I very distinctively remember me and Tom rifling through like stacks and stacks of paper to try to find something that we had signed, or the trunk of his car, or did I scan it in and put it? So that there is that kind of scary factor, especially if you're working with an agent that maybe is not as organized as they might be. But I love what you said earlier when you referenced that putting anything in the loop so that it can be found at any time, even years down the road, because I think that is highly important and something that I don't think that a lot of agents utilize the way that they could. And that's utilizing DotLoop outside of just a signature and organizational piece, in getting those clients into DotLoop beforehand, getting them to set up their account, getting them used to the platform, so that when they do go down the road and they want to say reference an inspection request and maybe the invoice that was done as to what that repair was based on what the seller did, that they're not calling you for it and you're not digging around your emails and documents on your computer and whatnot. It's saved in there. It can be in its own folder. That loops can be as big as they need to be. And having all of that in one space, I think, is a very underutilized way that DotLoop can keep our transactions together beyond the transaction. I mean, think about everything that comes with title. Like you said, termite, you can do any of your settlement statements, any sort of documents that they need to maintain for their taxes and for inspections. And even if they want to reference the old seller's disclosure, I don't think that the way clients are utilizing DotLoop today, that if they needed something, they would be able to find it themselves. Whereas before, they would either have a paper copy in their own filing system, or they would have a system on their computer that they would download out of, say, emails, or scan and copy into a folder or a USB or somewhere there. We've kind of taken the control of organization outside of the client. And I think putting them back into DotLoop and getting them used to being in that world a little bit more will really provide some next level value as an agent that can maybe differentiate us using DotLoop compared to somebody else using DotLoop. So sorry, I went on a whole tangent there. But I think it's important. And I think that thinking in that regard will make your life so much easier, and any of the clients too. So Jen, all right, Jen, give me some background of kind of your love or hate or frustrations within DotLoop and
well, I've been licensed. Can you hear me?
uh-huh.
Okay. I'm going on, what are we, I'm 19 years. I always renew the same year as Leslie. So I get,
Yes, this, you know what though, Jen, I got my broker's license last year, so we're
right.
on opposite schedules.
Shoot.
We can't be cheering each other on at like, a week until to get
Great
10 credit hours in.
So I'm going on 19 years. I started out in Phoenix about 10 years, and then I moved to Nebraska. I'm from here originally. Had a little baby, got another baby, and I just didn't want to start over. So I joined an agent in Dodge, and we did DocuSign. And then Stacy was my neighbor, so she convinced me to join her. And then she started the Read English group, and we came over to Better Homes. And so when we started DotLoop, it's come a long ways. I feel like Leslie's been a huge part of that. With the organization, we use templates like every day, all day long. She has already pre-template, so I use those for everything, and then I add to it. So it's like my little Excel sheet that I personally have for our team of 5, but I load those templates and it's my little checklist. I love DotLoop, where it's our one-stop shop for communication. So basically I work out of my own loop, but I access all team members' loops. That way the clients get to know me as well. So I'll send things that are missing, or if they get an accepted contract, I'll send all their documents from my loops. They get used to hearing from me a little bit more often than just their agent. I start listings. If they have a listing presentation, I'll start it all for them. I'll get it organized. And they work out of their own loop. I don't let them touch final documents. That's their no-no. So I do keep the purchase document folder, the listing separate. So I do copy and paste, but I don't like them going in there because they mess it up. So I'm like, you guys, this is where we work out of. You stay in the purchase folder or the listing folder, and that's where they're allowed to go. And
I like it.
Yeah.
It is helpful.
It is. And I love the task I assign. I know we discussed that earlier, 10:30, but once we go under contract or we have a new listing, I add to the to-do list templates, and I assign pretty much all me, but like I put in dates. So I know, okay, I got to make sure my appraisal's been ordered, follow up, make sure that termite's done. It's not my job, but if we're on the buy side, I got to make sure that the seller does go in and sign, because that could be the last missing piece of the puzzle and their agent's not paying attention. So I put everything in there, the to-do list and the task, and I assign it, put a date. Because what's really nice about DotLoop is that every morning you get an email with your to-dos or your missing documents that admin sends out. So I use that as my to-do list every day. So if I have missing things in my file, then I try to go down and check it off, and I'll just add it to the next day. So I feel like that keeps us all on the same page. And then any team member can go in and look and see, oh, Jen's on this, she's checking that off. Then they can see where every file up to date is. Yeah, we love DotLoop.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Rhonda?
Oh gosh, I've never known anything other than DotLoop, and I do like it. It appeals to the quirky side of me. So I just represent Tim, and that's enough. So sometimes I'll myself as well, I sell as well, but
typically it's just Tim's is about 80% of what I'm in DotLoop for. I guess some things that I've learned that I really love. So I'm a color coder. I haven't figured out how to color code in DotLoop. So if any of you know how to do that, please tell me. So the way I've gotten around that is I like to go in and set up specialized folders. So, every day at the same time, I like to go in and peruse all of the open loops and see where what's outstanding, what do I need? And when I'm in one of the loops, I will set up a folder for, anything that might need signatures. If I'm still waiting on a signature on an addendum or a cost sheet or whatnot. So it just helps me stay organized because I can look directly at that folder and know what is needed. I think to-do list would help me too, but I don't want to get too crazy. Jen, I'm the same way. I've asked him many, many times not to touch anything. Don't start a file. Don't start a loop. Don't do anything. He usually listens, but go in and fix whatever I need to if he happens to get in there. I also, automatically I always set up the loops under his profile and then just add me to the team, and then everything comes out from me. Not because Tim's not capable, because we all know how capable he is, but it's easier for me to get the notifications. And the same thing, Jen, I want the clients to get used to hearing from me. Most of them are fine. But it's just nice to have the collaboration there too. I also use DotLoop for projects too, not just a transaction. I think we all have like a miscellaneous folder, for whatnot, but when I'm helping with like some kind of a project for, like the page event, for things that I'm assigned to do for the brokerage, I'll set up a loop for that too, because I hate email with a passion. So anything I'm working on, I'll save it, in the loop. And so I like to use it for non-transactional work too. It's just an easy place for me to reference. I can get to it on my phone easier than I can if it's an email, and do that. And then the last thing that I like to do, as I'm looking through, because we all have so many loops and we don't archive them. And especially if you have like a new build, those loops could be sitting out there for months. And, they just kind of get buried as you get more listings and more purchases. So I like to label the loop name. So if everything's been submitted and I know that we're just waiting for the closing date to get here, I'll put a little star. So I just label it differently. So when I'm searching through my list, I can be like, oh yeah, that one's good. I don't need to look at that one. This one doesn't have a star. I need to go in and see what's still waiting on that one.
Oh, I really like you're adding a different folder for missing items, because I think that it's kind of the reverse of that final document, right? So we use those kind of your general purchase or listing kind of folder as just like the catch-all, and it just drops everything in there. But when you're missing a signature, you're missing something, it can get kind of lost in that jumble of space, because it doesn't go in that final document, but it could get lost kind of in the middle there. So having that up top also is kind of a visual reminder for when Tim or anybody else is going in there, that they can see that, oh, that's right, I still need to bug so-and-so about getting this addendum signed that's kind of critical to the transaction. Okay, so I do have kind of a thought or a question about kind of the color coding, but I don't necessarily know if it would be beneficial or not, or if it would be too much work. But what if you create something in Canva that's a photo? So it could just be a specific color. So you could add, a picture to that. And I think if I'm correct, which I can't remember specifically because I don't add pictures very often, and I can't remember, I had it earlier. But I can't remember if the picture actually pops in when you're in the loop or not. So you could trade that out and start, but then you'd have to kind of scan through and see that visual. I just kind of want to find one that has a picture on it. I'll keep kind of meandering around, of course, because I don't do any of it. Actually, I might have put one on my sister's. Anyways, no, but I do like that. And so I think the question also is like, how do, in trying to organize everything all at once, how do you have that communication when there's multiple people in a loop? Because I think that everybody does it a little bit differently. And are you adding people to the team, or like Rhonda, you said you created it under Tim and then added yourself to the team? Like when you're creating those loops and that contact, what does that look like in how you're creating it? Because sometimes there could be, if you can't find the loop right away, then they're going to create another loop just to get it out there, and then you have multiple loops with that same address. So anyways, how do you kind of set up your loops in general? Bueller, I'll take anybody.
Well, so only team members are just myself and then the agent, because we don't want everyone to see everything. So your seller or your buyer, if you don't share it with them, they're not seeing the items. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they are just the seller or the buyer. They're not added to our team. So that's the stuff, same with the other agent, lender, title person. We don't want the other agents to see our listing agreement right away. They don't need to know what we're getting paid out on. So the only team members are just Stacy, myself, and I think I do add Mark Handing. He might be on a team member. He goes and measures property, but that's otherwise everyone else is just listed in there as title, lender, seller, buyer.
Stephanie, do you add the agents as team members, or do you just kind of share what they need to be seeing and doing?
They all start their own loops. So then they add me as the team member. So they have access to everything. Not that they ever really do anything in there.
I guess random question. Do you guys change the loop label and how that's set up, or do you leave it kind of as whoever sets it up? Do you change it to kind of your organizational system, or do you kind of adapt to what somebody else's is?
Well, I have so many agents that do things differently. So some of them want to have the whole address with the zip code. Some don't care, but I always put the buyer or seller's name there. And once you're added to the team, that changes it for the agent too. So when the agent goes in and sees it here in their team, and you made that change to the title, they'll have that same there. And I don't know how else you would do it without a buyer or seller's name there. There's too many other loops, and it's the only way to differentiate for me.
It really is. And especially when you get to the mobile side of it, and I know somebody brought this up earlier, but the mobile is not as intuitive when it comes to how it populates the searches. And especially when you get to that south, S or south or street or, and so especially if it's a small, like, for example, my listing I just had was 612. It would take me forever to find it on the DotLoop app because there were too many other things that it was trying to pick up before it picked up that 612. And so, and then if you tried to type in south versus the S, it would get confused. So having that last name first seems to be a really good benefit. But then we also, as on this end, need to have the address. And it also is just kind of easy, especially if you're working with buyers and sellers or people that are buying and selling at the same time. So they have kind of multiple or could have multiple loops, which does lead me into a segue. So how do you guys set up when you have one client who is both buying and selling, and a client who maybe is writing a lot of different offers at the same time? Because there's a few different ways that it can be done. And I don't necessarily know if there's one way that's better or worse, but I think it's just dependent on what direction people feel more comfortable with.
I set up a separate loop for each individual home. So I know that some people I know, well, I guess I know other agents that will set up separate folders for each But for me, it's easier just to do one loop per address. It's easier for me to go back and find them that way.
So then when you're doing the one loop, do you have the clients re-sign, or do you copy in from other folders for, say, the agency or wire fraud and affiliated business? How do you handle having multiple loops and those kind of stagnated documents that don't necessarily need to be tied to a loop, but tied to a person?
I usually just have them sign it all because it's just an extra click or two. I think if I haven't really had any clients that have come back and said, gosh, why do I have to keep signing this? Really, I just send, it's easy enough for me. I mean, it's all out there, and I have a Tim folder with all of those documents. So I just scoop it all into each new individual loop and then send it all off. It's just cleaner and less likely for me to forget to copy and paste it in there.
We
So
do
then,
it by client. So like Sally has this one client, a Zillow lead, and tons and tons of property before that last one finally stuck. So it's just the title was her last name. When every folder was a different address, so then we could just archive it, but then we could keep moving the agency, the wire, the fraud, all the same, but we changed the address. But that's how we do it, and then we just hide it, so we're not having all these. That's just how we do it.
mhm. And then whenever you do that, you'll update the details page and not autofill because it tends to land in different spots. Yeah. Makes sense. Sorry, I just Rhonda, I removed the picture on Tim. So whoops, sorry about that.
Dude, this one was a nightmare.
Oh, good.
Move the whole thing.
So good question about
Oh yeah, I can see that agent. No, just kidding.
terrible agent. Let's just pause right there. Which agent that was.
Scroll back up.
So it is interesting though. I don't see that there's a spot where you can add a photo back in other than when you do it as a template. So the color coding might not work, but.
Well, click on the address right now. Then you can add the photo, right?
I thought that there was, but I didn't.
Right there.
There you go. Upload
there we go. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you really could do different color coded photos if you wanted, to kind of help if there is a color coordination to it in addition to that tagging, but just depends on, I guess, how much time you want to devote to it. Me personally, I'm kind of a creature of habit, and I know that my brain works like this for lists, not like this. So I would have to almost force myself into taking that extra step to kind of make it so visually I could see it. So just some thoughts on that. But
oh, that's great.
What else do you guys use when it comes to the tasks? So you guys had brought something up earlier that it sounds like you typically will assign tasks to yourself. Do you this is kind of a two-part question. Do you assign tasks to yourself and agents and clients, or one or both or none?
No clients, but to the agents, yes. So I'll assign myself, like, sign removal, lockbox removal. I'll assign to the main agent, schedule your own walkthrough, because I don't know their schedule. So I make them do their own walkthrough. I schedule myself, like, utility reminder, closing date, that kind of stuff. But then when it comes due, or a couple days before, I get that email. So I'm not in these loops every day, even though I try. And every Monday I like to sit down and audit our loops, but it just doesn't happen. Yeah. So I do like that daily email reminder. I'm like, oh, I gotta do that. It's closing on Friday. I get that sign out of there. So yeah, I love assigning it to myself. Yeah.
Stephanie, what about you? Do you ever use the task list to assign to agents that maybe need to do anything? Or how do you kind of communicate if they're, if they're absolutely missing something that it's only they can actually get or maintain? How do you kind of assign those tasks or communicate those tasks? And then keep track of, because I mean, that's a lot of files and a lot of people to be, and a lot of personalities within all of those people and files. Cause you have, I mean, at any given point in time with that amount of volume, you start adding the number of clients, the agents, the clients on the other side, title, closers, lenders, their pieces of it. That can really get, you could at any time be working with, 5 to 10 people on a transaction that's, so anyways, I digress. How do you keep track of things that need to be done outside of what you can control, and tracking with that amount of volume that they're getting done to keep things on pace?
Well, I use a transaction management program because of the volume that I do. It's just more efficient than going in and assigning roles every time. So I have templates in my program. It's a very basic program, but it just saves me time when I'm managing that many files. But as far as getting things from the agents, they're all different. So some of them don't ever check their emails and some do. And so they're all different. So I either text them or email them or send a message through the loop what I need. And I've kind of decided I will do that twice. And then if they don't want to do it, then it's things that aren't going to keep it from closing. I take care of addendums and things like that. But it's just, every person's different, so it's just communicating how they like to be communicated to, and doing it just twice, because 10 times I was too angry.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't even my file. I'm trying to
And why
get
am
out
I
of real
getting so much?
estate jail. But yeah, I don't assign them any tasks. I think the people that aren't doing those aren't going to do their tasks or look at their tasks or look at their email that tells them there's a task.
Very true.
So, yeah, I mean, people that hire a transaction coordinator are the people that don't want to do anything to do with all those details, and they're not good at it. So
that's where you step in and crack the whip and make sure that they're keeping them out of real estate jail.
No, it's just getting to know what works best for them, and they're all different. But my task management program emails me every day, and if I need a net sheet, I'll put that in as a task and say when I emailed them, and then I'll do it one more time, and then I just check it off.
I like it.
Yeah.
Do you guys use the DotLoop messaging at all? Or I know, like you were saying, Stephanie, that it kind of is dependent on how people want to communicate, but there's also an element of having things structured and organized in one place that's beneficial to kind of all parties. So I'm interested to hear from you all how you use the messaging, how often, how much, or if you don't use it at all.
I always try to use it as my first go-to because it does keep it in the loop, but I'm surprised at how many people don't respond to messages, like lenders, especially other agents on the other side. So I'll do that once, and then my next one will be through an email, and that's just so much more cumbersome, and it's not as efficient to me. But I'm really surprised at the people that don't reply to those notes.
What do you guys find, Jen and Rhonda, between kind of the response to messages or using messages? Because I have kind of similar thoughts so I want to see what kind of feedback you guys get, or if you see people utilizing that in the first place.
I mean, I do, just so that I think I have a few agents on my team that check those activity logs. So they like to see if something gets sent, because the title company is emailing them saying, hey, I need a listing agreement and your escrow sheet. Well, okay, I did do it. But so I do both, because a lot of people don't do DotLoop, or they might not know who I am, or they're lazy. So I start with the messaging. Once we go pending, I send it usually to Nate, to the lender, whatever title company it is. And then I do download the documents and then send via email. So I just have a paper trail because, and that, as an assistant, title companies, lenders, other agents, you can do your whole spiel in the very beginning, saying, contact me, don't contact the agent. But no one, I mean, I don't even do that. As an assistant, I go straight to the other agent as well, so I just, send the email the old way with the attachment. So
Yeah, I don't really use the messaging either unless it's with the admins. I mean, they're really good about responding. And,
yeah.
you know, we can communicate with them that way. But otherwise I don't. I guess I'm pretty lucky. Tim and I talk multiple times a day. So, and I go into the loops multiple times a day. So I just call or text him to, you know, if I need something from him.
Nate does a great job. I feel like Nate does message back and forth, you know, in DotLoop.
Yeah, Nate's really good too.
I was trying to see if you sent me anything on this one, but no, this is good because I think that from what I'm hearing from you guys is that those emails can get ignored, but I think it's because how DotLoop sends them out and how you have to kind of click back into the loop to be able to respond to it. I think if DotLoop were to sync up with emails and have it look more like an email that goes to them, and then when they respond, having that email come back and drop into messages, that would be a good tie between, kind of like, I think most of you guys have used Zap in that way, where we tie it up to our Gmail accounts. And so any correspondence that happens with one, we can see in the actual Zap profile. So that's just interesting. That was kind of a sidebar of kind of why, but it's kind of making sense as to why people don't naturally do it, because they can't respond to the email. They have to actually take that extra step and be actionable for it.
I thought you could just hit reply. That's what I do. And it doesn't look like it's going to them. It's going into that message area. But people don't realize that. So when you hit reply and you have this big, long, jumbled up
Email,
email,
Mhm.
you don't think, and I don't think DotLoop needs to make it more clear that just replying to this email will reply to this message, because it always has that big button that says
respond
go
or
to
reply
message or whatever, go to message and loop, and you don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, I ignore those. One, because they come from different. I also get a lot of notifications on DotLoop that I ignore because of the transaction component, but it does come in differently. So that's interesting. Do you think that if there would be an element of educating clients, lenders, agents, do you think that would help? Or do you think that it's just kind of more of a level of frustration? Like you said, Stephanie, I only like to ask twice because then I get frustrated.
Well, I think DotLoop could do something on their end. I mean, I know we don't have control of that, but I don't know about us trying to educate.
Right, if that would even make any.
Maybe in your message, I could try doing in my message for a while to see if it makes a difference, saying you can just hit reply to this email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think certain people are going to always respond and certain people never will, no matter how much you show them.
Makes sense. Well, really quick, I just want to pop in because we were talking about the tasks so much. I didn't actually kind of walk through how to create your own. And so you can do that here and use what ours is and use that as a baseline. And then what you can do from here, you have to do it in an actual loop. You can't just create it in the templates, but you could create and either delete some of these or add different ones that you want. And all you have to do is just click these buttons and click create template. And now you can create your custom one. So then you can do it anytime.
I did not know that. See?
Yeah. So now you can create your own and use ours as a baseline, but add some of those that are kind of specific. The other thing you can do is, most of you guys work with multiple people. And so you could create different task lists based on the person and what they kind of like to do. If every time somebody likes to, send a closing gift from wherever, then you can add that to theirs and just make a copy that's specifically their contract or their task list. But that kind of segues into the templates for the actual purchase agreements and all those wonderful documents that we can just make a lot more efficient. How detailed do you get in that? And I think it's going to be a little bit dependent and a little bit different, which is why I love that all three of you guys are here, because you do have, it just shows how similar and how different things can work based on kind of what those preferences are. And so do you guys create different, one, I guess, how often do you do the personal documents or do the agents? And then two, do you create them specifically for other people? And then three, it probably depends on if people are writing their own contracts or not, because that takes an extra step too. If you're not writing contracts, then it's kind of what their organizational system is. And then how organized are you, trying to keep them when it comes to that piece of it?
I don't do much on that end because I'm contract to close, so I don't get the loop until they've already got a contract. But I would love for the agents to know more about that, because there's always, especially in that space where you fill out all your buyer or seller agent information, there's always spaces that are left empty, and
A lot,
we
yes.
touched on that in the first session, but educating the agents on how to do that would be wonderful. And I know Dawn, when I worked on her team, had templates, and it's an easy thing to do. They just have to sit down and set them up one time, and they'd save so much time. And for me too, in the end, having to track down little pieces that they didn't fill in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Tim folder for buy and a Tim folder for listing, and I have one for myself for both as well. And I have every piece of information that I can pre-fill available. As soon as Tim tells me that, I've got a listing coming up, I will go and I will set up the loop, and then copy all those folders in there. Typically, I'll initiate all of the paperwork, but on occasion he will do that. So it just saves me a lot of time in the long run if it's already there for him to start filling in. And it's just, we're both happier at the end of the day.
I do the clauses. So Stacy does have her own escrow sheet personal, but she does her own escrow sheets. I do everyone else's, but I have personal clauses, and it has everyone splits for the escrow sheet. It has even like verbiage for addendums, your closing costs in lieu of home inspection repairs. I have everything in personal clauses that I just go in. It'd be easier maybe if I did the folders, but just one little click and like to fill in everything and it works. But
yeah, absolutely. And those clauses are really cool to use and we'll get better at having more of them as well, but it is just kind of that quick, just drop in. You don't have to recreate the verbiage every single time, and using that kind of ongoing. So I love having those clauses. Obviously my test clause is just so great, or, I need to use that on the regular.
I think I've seen that before.
I know. I mean, typing something up, you're like, what in the? Wait a minute. Okay, so when you guys how do you typically see other agents sending over documents when they're using DotLoop? Are they dropping it? Are they adding to a PDF? Are you emailing it? How are you getting documents that say go to other agents' emails into the loop if they're not doing it, or if agents are kind of assuming that you're getting in there as well?
this I just don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I just feel like everyone should have their own loop. I don't like sharing loops. I mean, some agents are like that. So Sally's like, I swear she sent it to me, but it's not in the loop. I'm like, because you got to go to her address.
Different loop. Yeah.
Invited you to copy and paste. I go, we don't work out of there. I don't, and I don't understand why. And maybe because I don't do it. But I have my loop. They have their loop. Just email it to me, click the PDF, and we're good.
Yes.
Same.
And I do the same thing out of sheer habit. But I think that there's definitely better ways to do it. But I think that, and I think I kind of showed you guys a little bit earlier, but
is that because they're adding us to the team?
That could be.
I don't understand why it happens that way.
Yeah, if they're adding you to the team, you could tell if they added you to the team because there would be another brokerage's admin on that people tab.
It's a different color.
Yeah, so you're in they're then either adding you to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the unfortunate part is that even if they don't add you to the team, then it creates another loop.
It does.
So it's like, what's better or worse?
Mhm.
And that's why I like the idea of the easy offer piece. And I'll just show you guys this because I don't think we're there yet as a marketplace. And the good and bad thing about us right now is that we do have more people using DotLoop, but the bad thing is that we have more people using DotLoop. So it's that whole thing where it's DotLoop's Achilles heel is that multiple agents using it at different brokerages and having those multiple loops. And they have a little bit of a fix with that merge, but then that starts to get dicey too, because if you're trying to keep yours organized and you merge it, well, then you have all these documents that could be from different places. Now, this easy offer, which I think we will eventually, hopefully, if I can get some traction at the OABR and start doing some trainings, then maybe I can start getting people to start using this. So it's called Easy Offer. And basically what you would do is, so I wouldn't put an actual, I'd create a folder. So I'd say my new folder is, let's say public offer docs. And then I would add, say, I wouldn't add the purchase agreement, but I would maybe add a placeholder, and I'm looking into seeing how we could do that. But I would add the things that I would already need. So I would put in my signed seller's disclosure, and I would put in a copy of the wire fraud, and I put in a copy of the affiliated business, and I would add that here. And so let's just say these are seller signed documents. We'll just do our affiliated. Obviously, we don't have a listing agreement. And basically anything else that we want. Now, we wouldn't want to do the purchase agreement because everybody's going to have their own, but similar to how we have our placeholders down here, there could be an option where we add a placeholder for, say, purchase agreement, pre-approval letter, miscellaneous documents, so that it could all be there. So then what you do is create this easy offer. We would select this. And now we have a link. So you could put that link directly into the MLS agent remarks. And then it does two things. One, it keeps us all working in one loop, but having separate folders. So it's not a share thing. It's already going to create it for you. So it eliminates that feeling of people having multiple loops and multiple spots without feeling like somebody's in your loop. But the other thing is that it creates live documents so that other people can utilize it, right? So when you're writing an offer and you have to put the seller's disclosure in, well, now you have to add the initials, you got to add the signature, and then you got to share for this, and then you got to add it, over here, and vice versa. When you're coming back on the purchase piece, you got to do that too, as a seller. So it also adds an easier component on their side, because then all of those things are already autofilled. All they have to do is assign the seller to it, and it will sign for them. But it keeps almost like a carbon copy of it. You don't get to see their information and anything that they put in there, and they don't get to see yours. And that's the same with your people. They won't see that at all. So I think it's something that we could get there, but I don't think that we're there yet, because I think that in our marketplace, there's a lot of, we're still pretty young in using DotLoop. So I think people are just kind of getting stuck in kind of certain ways that they utilize it. And I think that some of the brokerages in town are still kind of figuring out how to organize it a little bit better. Because Jen, you kind of alluded to it earlier too. Like, you guys came on early when we didn't know how DotLoop was going to work. And so it was kind of a free for all, which was confusing. So then we were able to button it up and be like, all right, here's how the system works. And we've had that for years. So just aside from kind of some tweaking. So I think that there's a couple of brokerages in town that haven't necessarily gotten to that point yet, but they might be a little bit bigger. So trying to kind of shift that boat into something else is really kind of hard. But I think those easy offers, if we start doing them a little bit more, I think it'd be pretty cool. But just a little sidebar.
I agree with that. I hope you spearhead that and get it going in this area. I think it would eliminate so much confusion because there's 15 different ways you get documents, and sometimes a folder just shows up in your loop,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's another loop, and sometimes it's emails. And some lady was trying to screenshot me a document that
Oh
from
my,
her .loop. I'm like, why are
from
you not
DotLoop.
just sharing the document? And yeah, so I think Easy Offer is very underutilized, and I'm anxious for our area to finally pick it up soon.
No, I hope. So last year I was supposed to do in-person DotLoop training at the OEBR, and then COVID hit. So maybe, oh, did I undo it? I might have undid it. I love it when when I say that there's this cool stuff and then it doesn't work very well. Dang it. But there's one other thing too, and that is there's a portion in templates that works a little bit differently. So can I steal one of your guys's recent, well, maybe I don't have one enough. Trying to think of one that wouldn't be set up. So let me do this. So there's a way to set up a template where you just add the template for like fillable spaces without actually adding or creating a template. So theoretically, if we have a purchase agreement and our uniform purchase agreement, that it should be easier to just, instead of snag it from your templates or folders, to just adding what the autofill is. And I'm not making a lot of sense, but bear with me here for a second. Kind of tested it out here. So this would be for, let's say on the purchase end, or I'm sorry, on the listing end, when you get that purchase agreement and you're downloading it, you're putting it into DotLoop, and then you're adding all of those initials and your counter and all of those things. You could create another template that's specifically for that piece of it, or even sellers or disclosures. But it could be slightly different, right? So let's say this is from Berkshire. What you could do is where are we at? Okay, apply template. So if I hit apply template and I go to, which now I'm in my other one. Oh my God, you guys, sorry. 2 seconds. I have to be in mind to do this, because when you create your own templates, then you don't have, I can't even see what you guys create. So, which is nice. All right, now we're back. So if I go apply template, I can see, this is one that I just did this morning. It drops it on top of it. So this is a stagnant, it was just a PDF and I dropped it in. So everything fell in on top of it. So what you could do is delete out all of the other things except for seller's initials. And then you could have all of your agent seller information, which I don't have filled out. But see, so you could have this already filled out. It's just going to drop it in and then have your boxes. So basically you would delete all of these other things and only have the spaces that you would fill out as if you were filling it out on the listing side when you get a purchase agreement.
But that will work even if it's somebody else's, because all the documents aren't the same.
They are not the same, except the purchase agreement and the seller's disclosures are. So I was going to use the one that I just got in, but it doesn't work as well if it's scanned in. It works better if it's just a straight up download, because it's going to be all in the same place. So for example, this is an offer that I got in. It's uploading. do this really quick so we can kind of get an idea. Let's do a mass delete. Can't. Okay. No. All right. See how I love when things just get so much better. Look at this cool thing that it can do. Oh. Well, I'll show you what it kind of looks like if it's not lined up specifically, because it's harder to tell when it's an exact copy of a document, which it should be. Not templates. Oh my God, you guys, it's the afternoon. Here we go. Okay. Oh yeah, I'd be curious to know about the listing files. Oh, actually, all right, anyways, file, and if you apply template, I take any of them. Now, if this were lined up properly as a regular download, then this would be where it would benefit to just have it already saved and assigned. So basically you're filling in anything that's an actual autofill or typable piece. So we would have these, deleted out of there previously. So when it dropped in, it wouldn't drop it in on these. But since this was a downloaded one, I didn't have time to find one or a scanned one. I didn't have time to find one that I could just do a download, which is mostly what we're operating with.
You would already have those pieces deleted out that you couldn't change.
Yes, they would already be.
Offer.
Mm-hmm.
But it would drop in your pieces and your seller initials and.
Yes. Yep, exactly. So just kind of one other weird thing. You uploaded listing photos into DotLoop. So Alexis, how are you doing that? Would it change it to a PDF? Or did you have a link within a task? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm on the phone, guys. I'm sorry. I'm in the car with my I'm in the car with my kids and it's a little chaotic right here. So there was a way that this was done by the ad or their sales team, like the sales admins.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a way to
Oh, we lost you.
A photo. Let me just see if I can find it real quick on my phone. Can you hear me?
We kind of lost you there.
Okay, sorry. No, there was a way to add photos into, or a link to add photos into DotLoop. I'd have to play around with it again to figure out how to do it. But if I can find directions and make a quick little video, I can send it to, I think somebody had specifically asked in the chat. Stephanie had asked. I can email some directions to you, Stephanie, or anybody else who wants it.
Oh, I would be interested.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love it.
My Dropbox.
Okay, I'll take a screenshot of who's in this and email you all some directions.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Now there is something that, yeah, exactly that. I would love to see that. I've tried a couple of different ways of doing something similar, but I always run into it changing it into a PDF. But now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I think that there is, now if you utilize Dropbox, or say, drive, however it is, what you can do, and can you guys see my screen again? Or has it been there in the task? Okay. So in a task, you can actually have a live link. So this, if I click on this, it will take me to another link. So if you have your, say, pictures on that, you could share that, and then it might be a way to eliminate having to email the transactions at Better Omaha for photos. It could be that you add it straight to this right here.
That's a much easier way.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're using some sort of cloud base, which we've really shifted to a lot over the last, few years versus everything kind of being on our desktop. So that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. Is there anything else that you guys use or find extremely helpful, whether it be on the actual desktop version or mobile, or just kind of some general DotLoop philosophies or organizational pieces that you bring in with your either clients or agents or your own personal organization?
I had a couple things. One, I had just a couple of questions that a lot of my agents seem to ask me on a regular basis. One is adding contacts into the people section first, especially your lenders, your order entry title companies, your escrow officers that you use again and again, because if you just add them to people in the loop and then you go to use them again in another loop, it only pulls in their name and email, which is really silly. And I know a lot of people have requested that be changed in DotLoop, but that's how they do it. But if you go into the people tab at the top and then choose contacts and then set up a contact in there and set them as the lender and their address and phone number and everything, then it will pull in every time you put them in the loop.
Interesting. That would be that they couldn't figure that out. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't understand the reasoning, if it's
yeah.
because
It
then
does add it though. What do you mean it doesn't add it?
What?
So when I like repeat Nate, right? You just have to type in N and he pulls up and I add him as escrow.
Yeah.
So you're saying it doesn't?
It does, but it only pulls in Alana and her email address.
Oh, not phone number.
If you put them into your actual people contacts, you can put in their role, their phone number, their company, everything. So it all pulls in when you type in Nate, then into a loop, it'll pull him in as the escrow officer and
got it. Yeah.
And fill out all that in your escrow sheet.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're like, you think the things that are, because I was also looking at this escrow that we have set up, and it's like, there's not.
Yeah, she doesn't work here.
Yeah, with that, but then also it's like, well, I don't want to request info. I want to send it over to you. So it's almost useless having these filled in.
Yeah, I don't understand that section either.
So that's a good tip to have that. Go to the people's tab first, just add all of your vendors, all of their information they need, and have that there and ready.
And then I think agents get pretty confused about how they can utilize DotLoop to scan, which I know you've told them about a million times, and also you can merge files and you can take them apart, whatever that's called.
Yes.
And they get confused because if they put in a document and it's not the right version, it won't let them break it apart. So then you have to download it and bring it back in, and then it will. And then merging, there's nothing that says merge. You have to put them in the order in the loop that you want, click on page, download, and then bring it back in, and they'll all be together. Agents are always like, well, when I get these scanned in, or well, they're scanned in all in one piece. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That's okay.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how they don't have that knowledge, I don't think, of those pieces that are so easy. And the scanning thing
Oh yeah.
on DotLoop is so convenient. You scan it right into a folder.
Mhm.
Very easy.
Yeah, from your phone.
Yeah, you can just split and rename. I love that feature.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
you're
good.
right. Not as many people utilize it. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
I'd
it.
rather get a whole file of 12 pieces of paper or whatever it is instead of 13 different pieces that you don't have to scan in everything separately. It's just as easy to split it.
Yeah. All good stuff. And I sometimes forget about that. Well, and you can also fax. So, my all-time favorite.
Oh,
Fax?
Yes, you can fax from DotLoop
Wow.
for like the one time a year that you need to fax something. Just straight in.
Yeah,
Hmm.
let's not get crazy.
No.
Not get too crazy.
poor Leslie. I kept emailing you. Did you get the fax back? Did you get it back yet?
No, but you can't fax in. So you can only fax out, but you can't fax in.
Right, but doesn't it come to you if they?
Yeah.
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 Well, thank you guys so much. If there's anything that you think of or anything that you need, just let me know. You guys are wonderful. I love it. You guys get gold stars from everybody that I ever talk to, and I appreciate all of your knowledge and information that you guys get to pass on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Happy to help. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Too.
Bye.
Hey there, we are at our second portion of DotLoop Days pre-recorded videos. And in this video, we are going to kind of take it to the next level and talk about some efficiencies that you can do to either set up ahead of time or make very easy while you're in a transaction or waiting for paperwork. So let's hop to it. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to hop straight into DotLoop and on our dashboard. And like you had seen in some of our other videos and maybe on the panels, we have talked about kind of how you can efficiently organize your DotLoop. Now, what I'm going to do, because again, this is taking it to kind of the next level, is I want you to know and see the different ways that you can organize your dashboard, maybe to the next level a little bit too, right? So you can change views, of course, and you can sort by closing date. And that seems to be the general consensus as to people organizing their actual dashboard and seeing kind of what's next on the list. So the other thing you can do is create filters. And so you might already have some of these. So let's just get these here. So this is kind of what you see, and it will default to the last one that you've done. But what you can do is you can change this. So if you only want to see, and probably for your default, my suggestion would be to only have those transactions that you're maybe actively working in. So right now you'd want to do your no status, anything that was a private listing, under contract. And this all is going to depend on how you work and operate, because it really is, if you don't use new or pre-offer or in progress type deal, then you might not even need those. So if I change that, then I can go ahead and save, and I can make this my default settings. So then I just create and apply. And now when I go to my filters, just like you saw at the top, it shows it right here. Now, the other thing that I suggest is creating one that is maybe for creating one that's for anything that might be missing or needing items. And so what you can do is then take this down here. You can select basically, I guess we have hide archived, and that's always a suggestion. But if you scan down, and you can leave it at loop status, because that's really we're looking for things that are maybe missing. So you could go down and go to return to agent, anything that's maybe been, if you wanted to see what's completed, I don't suggest it. But anyways, mostly that returned to or needs review, because maybe you sent it for review and we just missed it. So what you can then do is save. And now we're going to call this missing items. We'll just go missing items, create and apply. So now we have different things that pop up based on what we're needing and what we could use. I'm going to go back to my default and just hit apply here. All right, so that's kind of the general of organizing kind of to the next level your efficient way in the dashboard. But we're going to talk about a few things today. The other thing I want to point out is tasks. So if you are more organized or don't have things that kind of get assigned to you on a kind of only on a need to know basis, then this might be your best friend. So your task list will get emailed to you every day if you allow it. And that's in your settings. And we talked about that in one of our other videos, but this will give you an idea of anything that's maybe overdue or missing. So let's say you're missing like this one here. I'm missing a signature on a cost sheet. So I would maybe want to go in and see specifically what that would be so that I can get that taken care of. And again, you'll get an actual email for it. So my recommendation is if you haven't used your tasks, to go ahead and go in there and clear them all out and then start fresh. And so then you can really get an idea of all of the different things that you can utilize on a daily basis to keep yourself organized on what is exactly needed at hand for the day. And we'll talk a little bit more later about customizing your task templates, and that will really come into play on your kind of task master list, because if you start using those and assigning those to yourself after specific tasks or to other people, then you can really have a feel and get a grasp on what's next in your transaction. So we're going to pop here into one of our loops, and we're just going to talk quickly about the different ways that you can share documents, or when something comes up and documents aren't shared properly, or something's missing, or they just haven't seen it. So for example, every once in a while, you'll get a client that says, I got the document, it's telling me to do this one thing, or I can't sign, I keep clicking done, or whatever the case may be. And that kind of familiarity could be a part of that, but you can always reshare. So I'll pop down here and I will just go here. We'll just do, say, I'll go into one of finals. So my purchase agreement, we have that with admin. So that's my final one. Let's find one that's already shared. Okay, here we go. So I have one that's signed, and I can see that it's assigned to my client and obviously admin, because they are always going to be there. And if I just hit share, well, now I can reshare. So then, for example, this comes in handy when I'm sending over the seller's property condition disclosure. I would want it to be a fill and sign, not a can sign. So if I send that over to them and it had accidentally just been popping in there as a can sign and went, oh gosh, I totally forgot to do that, you can go back in and reshare it immediately and change the actual options for what they can and can't do within the template. Now, the other thing that happens sometimes is, let's say you're opening up a document and it pops up with that little box that says, someone else is in it. So you can either make a copy, you can ask to take the document. And I think there's, view without making changes. So if that happens, that means that they got stopped somewhere within that signing process. And so they're either actively viewing it, or they haven't finished completing the signatures. Now, that could also mean that they got out of DotLoop and maybe forgot a signature and initial, and that can happen sometimes too. So what you would want to do at that time is click take document and then reshare it. Simple as that. Okay, so I won't talk too much about kind of resharing, because again, this is a little bit more of that next level. We already know how to share with, share a document with a client or vendor or whatnot. Now, what I will do is give you a little bit of kind of a tip and another little efficiency when it comes to sharing documents. We have this people tab down here, right? So we can add any of our other, like you can add, say, your lender or title or even specific vendors if you need it. And then what you can do is, let's say you have a purchase agreement under contract, you need to send that to your title, you need to send it to the lender, and you need to make sure that your clients have an executed copy. So you can just click and share at the same time. So we would click these guys. Obviously, we're not sharing those specific ones. And then you would go up to share. And then as you're adding people here, you can add, of course, custom, right? Let's say it's just Alana. You can add this and then say, hey, all, congrats, you're under contract. Roger's under contract. And just say, here's the executed purchase documents. Please start moving forward with title and mortgage. If you have any questions, please let us know. So now you're sending one email with all of the documents to one group of people, and then you'll be able to see who has seen that or opened it when you go into your notifications. And also when you see your history. So for example, we've got our history here. If I can scan down a little bit more. We can see then in our history, so you would be able to see if that lender got it or if title did as well. And the great thing that I like about having it all within DotLoop is that when they start messaging back, and if we start coordinating and really putting emphasis on messaging through DotLoop, then you can keep everything in one spot and everyone can be up to date. So for example, let's say you share it to title. Well, there might need to be multiple people within the title company that needs to be on it, and vice versa with lenders as well. Adding everyone into one spot really can create that efficiencies, because as you know, not everything is seen by everyone. So these little people buttons here, you can see who has access to it. So this seller net sheet, you can take comfort in knowing that, okay, I didn't accidentally share that with the buyer's agent, because you can see specifically who has that. So I'll kind of move forward a little bit. There is an option to add your service providers, which I think is really pretty cool. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the pictures are a little funky, and I don't know if there's really too much in how you can kind of customize some of those, but you could set up your utilities. So you could add, your water, and even think about like CenturyLink and all of those other pieces. You can have that so that it's all just in that loop that your clients can have access to. Now you also we've got our escrow, and then you can set up your lender as well. So then those buttons will easily pop up there when you're in the loop. Now, sometimes when we're working with multiple agents or with agents that have DotLoop or have been using it, which is, we're coming up on that a lot more frequently because more brokerages in town and more agents are adopting the DotLoop platform versus say DocuSign or SkySlope or a couple of other random ones that don't necessarily sync up, which actually can be easier on our end, because then we don't have all of that kind of merging and multiple pieces and loops and things, right? So it actually, having more people in the marketplace using DotLoop can prove to be not challenging, but we just need to kind of change our mindset into how we're working with those agents. Now, typically what we do is we like to just share this and just add it as a PDF, attach as a PDF, right? So I like to do that. I'm like, don't be messing up my loops and adding more stuff. And I don't need to archive more of your stuff and getting different pieces. But that really takes away from the efficiency of DotLoop, because DotLoop really is meant to be a collaborative system and used within different brokerages that use them separately, right? So we want to be able to utilize DotLoop in the way that it was meant and eliminate some of that frustration by working more efficiently with our other agents. So typically we like to just attach PDF and then be done, right? And kind of vice versa. But you will have multiple loops and multiple things, especially if you get multiple offers. And so what we see a lot of times, which is actually preferential, is to change the name of your loop. So if you click here, this is going to take you to your loop details. And what we can do is use a custom name. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the name of my client there. So then now I know that that's my loop. Also, from a previous picking agents' brains, I've heard that having the last name first makes it a lot easier to search when you're going mobile, because the mobile dashboard, yes, it does pull up and it is very user-friendly. It does, however, have a tendency to get confusing when you have multiple loops that are named the exact same that maybe other agents started or created that aren't your own. And that kind of leads me into merging loops. So you may or may not know that there is an option to actually merge loops. So a lot of times when we have multiple loops from either multiple agents, or let's say even in the middle of a transaction, something happens and a new loop gets created. And believe you me, it happens more often than we would think, but it does happen. And so we can merge loops, but just remember that this cannot be undone. So once you merge a loop, then it will all be there, which actually is the better way to go. Now it's all there for you. It's not necessarily all there if it's another agent that has that information as well. So some people also archive those, and that's fine too. But then that's when you really want to make sure that your dashboard settings are set up correctly so that you're not seeing all of those archive loops as well. And adding that last name or client or some differentiator to that is going to, that you consistently use, is going to help you in organizing and finding the correct loop. So I'm in the details page as I kind of popped in here to change the name. So I'm kind of in the back end where everything is kind of learning off of, where all of these autofill informations and pieces are. Now, I always recommend that once you go under contract that you double check your details page, because sometimes if there's something that changes, that details page, if it's not part of an autofill, it will not know that. For example, I have my listing information, which is my original price here, but I want to make sure that my purchase agreement price is correct. Now this right here is actually incorrect because we had an addendum that we changed it and had to reduce at a certain point after the inspection. So you want to just double check those things as everything changes. And that's also the same with your escrow sheet. So if anything changes throughout the transaction, be sure to change that escrow sheet so that we can make sure that Eden and Alex can process your commission efficiently. I kind of went on a tangent there. I apologize, but this is the details page. And the thing that I did want to show you is that merging of loops. So when we hit merge loop here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my other guy. Now, this is also where it comes in handy in naming your loop something a little bit differently. So if I had, say, this 612 South 158th Street, and it was the same thing as maybe 2 or 3 loops that accidentally got created, I'm not going to know which one I should actually select. So I've got this one here. We'll take that guy and we'll click merge. And we're going to continue. And then it will take all of the documents and push them together. So you just have to remember that if you have multiple documents in each of those forms, it will take those things into that and it will keep the loops separate. So just keep that in mind, that now we have 2 listing folders because I'd created one and another one that I didn't necessarily use. So keep that in mind because you want to make sure that as you're merging those loops, it's as clean as possible. And the goal of merging loops really is just to get everything into one space. So if you have 2 loops that are very unorganized or not working well together, I don't recommend merging those loops. That might be an archive option. Okay, so merging loops helps us kind of clean up and keep things in its own space. And now we're going to talk and shift a little bit into our templates. Now there's 2 different types of templates. There's templates with tasks, and there are templates for your autofills and forms. I'm going to show you a few different ways to do things. So I'm pretty excited about one of these ways that I did not mention on the live panel. So if you are watching this and you missed the live panel, you are getting an extra little tidbit that they did not get earlier. So what we'll do is we are going to start with our task templates. Now, what the task templates are is some of you guys haven't even scanned past the people because we kind of get stuck in that world, and that's fine. But keep scanning. And now once we get past people, now we have tasks. You will see some task lists in there that are added by us. So this file audit here, that's added from us at the brokerage level. And then these urgent tasks, which are things that I need to be doing. So you want to look at those pieces. And that's where also that main dashboard page and that email that comes from DotLoop that has those tasks, you will be able to kind of quickly at a glance see what those are. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to add a new task template because at this point, I'm not recreating anything. These are just templates that the brokerage already has based on kind of some of those core things that needs to happen, say when you're leading up to listing, or when your buyer is under contract. So we have a lot of those already ready for you, but you can customize them. So first I'm going to add a task list, and then I'm going to show you how to customize it. Now, the only way to customize a task list, which might sound a little backwards, the only way to customize it is when you're in an actual loop. So I just want to specify that will be a little bit different than creating a template for your actual forms. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add my listing under contract and add that here. Scan down to the bottom because that's where it's going to be added. Hopefully you don't get too lost in my loop, because I have kind of been using this one as test loop. But here is our listing under contract. Now, these are things that we've added at the brokerage level that are pretty consistent with kind of that space that your transaction is in. Now, the other thing that you can do, though, is you can customize these. For example, I would like to add and make sure that after, let's see, maybe negotiate repairs and sign home contingency removal. Maybe I want to change that and I want this to be maybe next week, because the inspection is maybe happening in a few days. And I want to assign that to, say, myself. Which, look at how many people I added. This is what happens when you merge loops, right? So anyways, let me find, we'll just add it to Justine. So you can add it and assign it to the person. And you can also do either a specific date or after another task. So I have one up here that's assigned to me, but it's after a specific task is done. I guess you can't see. Oh, see. So after I confirm, I have it set to complete the escrow sheet. You can change and play around with these things. So what that would then do, let's say I want to add something like deliver closing gift, and say I want to, and you want no due date, because we're building a template here. We're not necessarily building what this specific one will do. So I'm going to change these to no due date and assign to no one, because right now I'm doing this as if I'm creating the template. Then you can go back in later and assign it to that specific loop. But unfortunately, this is the only way to do it, to create your own task list. Okay. Whoop. Okay, so then let's say we have another one that's right, thank you note to lender. Okay, so this might not be here. Here, not lender. Let's edit it. Thank you note to buying agent once you're under contract. Do no due date. Now what I want is I want to take this up and I want to move it maybe closer to when we go under contract. Doesn't really matter where, actually. No due date. Okay, so now I can change or update, or maybe I'm like, you know what, I just don't really think that I need to write anyone a personal note for this transaction. I don't like that one. So you can change all of that, and then up here, go to where it's, we've got our name, go to those three little dots, and now click Create Template. And we're going to change this to anything that you will recognize. So you can either do custom listing under contract. And maybe I'll just put my name on it, just so I know. And we're going to create template. Okay, now what we do is, let's say we're in a totally different loop and we're under contract. We want to load template. Now we will have our custom under contract. Now this is just for you. No one else will see this. So just, no one else will see your task list. You can just add them as they go. And there it is. It pops right up for you. You can make task lists for pretty much anything. So if there is even, say you have a pre-listing checklist that involves pre-inspections and contracts or contractors, lining things up, you can create any sort of task list that you use on a regular basis. It could even be a follow-up task list. So for example, not that you're going to use this as a CRM, but you could put something in that reminds you, hey, maybe it's, this time of year where we all get new tax assessments. Maybe it's following up with clients that maybe are there. Anyways, you can do anything with this. Again, it's all kind of up to how you like to use DotLoop and in your transactions. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create our own template for the documents that we use on a regular basis. So as you guys know, that once you create a loop, there are already loop templates to select from that are at the brokerage level. Now those forms are everything that you use on a regular basis. So those are going to be the actual required documents that we need. So it's not going to have your lead-based paint. It's not going to have any of your VHA certifications or any of those other supplemental documents. It's only going to have the ones that are absolutely necessary for every single transaction. So you can create your own custom templates. And you can do a couple of different things, right? So this one already right here, you should have a personal documents tab. You can always create a new folder and add anything that you want. So you could have Leslie's purchase documents or Leslie's listing documents or really anything that you like to name. And then what you do is we're going to add documents to it and create a template. So for example, let's say I want to do the purchase agreement. So I went to add from template and we're going to do purchase and our purchase agreement. Copy it here. Okay. Now what you want to do is you want to pop in here and you want to create any of those normal changes or normal actions that you usually do. For example, I always put only and no exceptions, except none. And maybe you know that you always ask for window coverings and hardware. We need all the fixtures and fans, TV mounts and garage door openers with all remotes. It's all this stuff that we do kind of all the time. And then you kind of know which ones that you need to go back and fill in. Now this is helpful too, because you'll have things like, I know I always deliver it to the escrow agent instead of the office, and it's to be delivered with the agreement. And then you get into, maybe you always have your lender, right? So you could have your, Dundee Bank and have Alana's information. And we always, there's just, anyways, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because you'll be able to see exactly what it's doing. So then what we're going to do here is we're going to go up to File and Save as Template. Yes, I would like to save my changes. Okay, and now I would like to replace the purchase agreement template because I added that one and now we're kind of doing a save as, but we're doing the same thing. We're replacing it over. Okay. Oh, cannot replace with itself. Never mind. Save as template. And we'll just copy. Okay. So now what we want to do is go back to here. Now this is a PDF, so we know that this is not the same one. Okay, which is interesting that it saved it as a PDF because it is a live document. Okay, so what we'll do, let's see if this saved it. All right, has everything here. Now we have a template. Now what you can do is you have this personal documents folder. So at any point in time, you can go into your template and you can drop it over. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. We'll do Leslie 622. Okay. Now I'm going to go into a loop. And let's just create a new loop. I think I have about 17,000 test loops if you guys are really curious about it. And we're going to select purchase because we don't want to lose any of those other documents that are already there. And also all of those placeholders for that kind of final submit for review, because that's important, because if you have to recreate that, or we have to recreate that, it's kind of a lot of work. So now we go into our loop here. Now, what you would normally do is go in here and then click your purchase agreement and have to fill everything out again. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. So first would be to add document and go to your templates. And now here's my personal documents folder, along with all of the other folders that we have. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the one that we just created and copy it over. Let's just make sure we have all of our templates and pieces there. Okay, we would autofill at this point, of course. And we do have everything that I've already kind of selected and checked. Now what we would want to do, so that to keep our loop as organized as possible, what we want to do is we want to take this and put it right on top of the purchase agreement. Yes, we want to replace that because we don't want to get confused between the purchase agreement that we have and the purchase agreement template that we have. So now you can see that this is our actual templated piece that we don't have to re-enter. Now I'm going to do you one extra, and this is what I didn't talk about that I will be doing another little video for, is there is an even easier way to do a template. And watch, I'll talk about this and then it probably won't work properly. But let's say, for example, you know what, let's unarchive actually. Let's get our first one back. I want to show our archives. If you ever need to find an archive that you have archived, first let's rename it. I don't want to confuse it with my other ones. And now I want to unarchive. Okay, so now we have our original purchase agreement from the template that doesn't have any of our templated options. It's not autofill at this point, right? So it's just your blank standard purchase agreement. Now what you can do is go to file. Yep, can't be applied to documents with fields. Never mind, scratch. Okay, so the way that you would want to do it is to do over each one there. So we're going to archive this guy again because we don't need him. And so now you have your personal templates popped in there. Now you can create pretty much anything as a template. So it can all be applied directly into, in that custom templates section that we were at before. You can take any of them and actually apply them and create your own versions of your forms. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about before we wrap up is clauses. And this is something that we'll get better at as a brokerage in having more clauses for you. But what a clause is basically it's, any of that verbiage that you use on a regular basis, like buyer to pay or seller to pay buyer's closing costs, or whatever your escalation clause verbiage is. Maybe it's you have specific verbiage that you like to counter back with when it comes to, say, contingencies or whatever you use on a regular basis. You can add so that you don't have to retype every single time. So we go back into our templates and scan all the way down to the bottom. And here is our clauses option. Now here's my test one. This is a test, blah, 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 right? So anyways, you can very easily just add a new clause and just basically type specifically escalation, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that. But you can add as many of them as you like. Now, when you apply them, it's really very easy to apply it to your documents. So let's get back into my test loop, whichever one I have. Okay, we will pop in and let's just add a document. Here's my I'll just do an addendum here. Okay, we're going to go here. And now what I'll do is just start typing in that. This is a test clause. Click on that and it drops it right in. So now you don't have to recreate the wheel on all of your verbiage, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much it I have for you today. One other thing actually that I will say that we may or may not have talked about, but we can add different, say, initials and signatures, but we can group them together and use our quick keys. So if you see at the bottom right here, there are different options that you can do to quickly add different things, right? So what I would maybe want to do is select these two, and maybe I want to assign it to buyers. Okay. And now what I want to do is I would like to make a copy. Maybe I'm on a different page. If I do Control-Shift-C, that copies it. And then if I do Control-Shift-V, that then drops. Oh, look, I got even the top piece of it. And now I can drop in pretty much anywhere, except for I grab the top. Sorry about that, guys. And there you go. And it's not going to let me drop it. Fun times. All right, well, that's pretty much it that I have for you guys. If you have any questions or anything that's kind of in using your DotLoop more efficiently or setting up more templates and documents and all of that other fun jazz, I'm absolutely here to help. So if there's anything you need, please just let me know. And I hope that you're having a wonderful DotLoop day.